It is Health Friday, and as we do that, we're going to look into suicide, big ticket item when it comes to mental health, and we'll be looking at its awareness and prevention. And our guest to help us have that conversation is already seated in the hot seat this morning. Edna Chawiyah, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Good to have you here. The Edna we know, normally we don't see her, but a great force to be reckoned with. Mm-hmm. And so now here is another Edna sitting on this side. So it's great to have you here as well. Thank you so much for being here. We're getting into this hour, and Ndroko CT Muga with you here. And our guest host for this show is architect Sylvia Kasanga. You know, I want to say senator every time. That's the thing that politics will do to you, isn't it? Architect Sylvia Kasanga is also the Board of Trustees chairperson at Lukenya University, and she's steering conversations with us this morning. Welcome once again.
Thank you, Joe.
All right. So there are many things happening at the same time, but I want to tell us about one thing that happens in October, about a month from now. It's the 20th edition of a very special event, and it's Kenya's largest single-day athletics event. It's back. It's in grander style. Like I said, it's the 20th one, and it's in the name of the Standard Chartered Nairobi Marathon. Takes place on the 29th of October, which is Sunday, and it kicks off from Uhuru Gardens, and you have the chance between now and then to register on www.nairobimarathon.com. Register with 2,000 shillings, and then get ready to run in whatever category you will do. Whatever you do, as you pay, however you participate, all the proceeds of your participation goes towards the Future Makers program, which helps young people, especially girls and people with disability, to learn, earn, and grow. Register today and make a difference in these lives. Edna, karibu once again. As we go into this conversation, CT Muga is going to welcome you with Proverb from Malawi.
This is our final day of our Proverbs from the country of Malawi, otherwise known as the Republic of Malawi. It's a landlocked country. Yes.
They say land-linked. They don't say landlocked.
Okay,
they call it land-linked because they're so linked.
That is a very, very interesting way of putting it. Yes, I agree with you.
Yes, because they have a lot of things they benefit from their immediate neighbors.
Thank you. Land-linked. Very good indeed. Who can tell me what the capital city of Malawi is?
Which capital? Are you looking for commercial or administrative?
Just tell me both.
She knows.
Tell me both. Let's start with commercial.
Blantyre.
Very good. Good. Now don't answer the next one. Okay. Administrative.
It's Lilongwe.
Yes, it is Lilongwe. Yes. Excellent. Okay. What is the commercial capital of Kenya?
Kirinyaga Road. Okay, sorry.
Downtown Nairobi.
Nairobi. Okay. What's the administrative capital of Kenya? Nairobi. An upstart is a sparrow trying to marry a hornbill.
Edna, you have the... we have the pleasure of asking CT to say that again.
I know, yeah.
Oh.
An upstart is a sparrow trying to marry a hornbill. Right. Now we're going to ask you your opinion.
What do you make of that, Edna?
What do you think the writers of this proverb were trying to say?
I would need to know the unique characteristics of a sparrow. And
apart from being a bird.
Yeah.
It's small.
Yeah. Oh, apart from, and a hornbill?
Has the beak is really big, but it's bigger than a sparrow. Distinctly. In fact, the beak is bigger than the body of the sparrow. Yes.
So there are many ways to view that. So an upstart is a sparrow trying to marry a hornbill, is it? That would mean, I could look at it from the point of view of if you wanna, no matter how small you are, for you to be able to move ahead or move up, then you need to be able to aim for something higher. That's one perspective I think of.
Good.
Yeah.
Ndu would say, voila.
Oh, okay.
Yes. Very good. See, the thing about Proverbs, your perspective can't be wrong. That's your perspective. That is how you interact with the proverb.
That's true.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Indeed. All right. I guess we'll see more insights into that as we go along.
Yeah.
Suicide prevention and awareness is what we're talking about now on this Health Friday conversation. Edna, once again, thank you for joining us. You are a consultant psychologist, and with Minet Kenya. And so one would assume that you come into you come in touch with a lot of these conversations quite often. Let's start off with suicide, and it could seem like we know exactly what suicide is, and so it's easy for us to discuss what exactly is suicide as we go into this conversation now.
Okay. So suicide, if you were to define it, would be self-injury with the intent of dying. Yeah, that's what suicide would be. Doing something to yourself that would ultimately result to your own or in your own death. That's what suicide would be. That's how I would define it. Yeah.
Okay. And as we look at Kenya today, Kenya specific, have we seen over time that the cases of attempted or unfortunately successful suicide have risen? And if they have, what can we see are the causes behind these cases of suicide?
Okay. Looking at Kenya today, yes, indeed, the cases of suicide have been on the rise. And I know the causes are varied. In fact, we don't even say causes per se. We call them risk factors. Okay. You know, because if we were to talk causes, then one thing would automatically result in something else. So rarely do we say we have one specific cause for suicide. In most cases, it's multiple issues that somebody is dealing with. So when we are to look at that, there are definitely the biological aspects. Biological aspects would mean things that would interfere with someone's neurochemistry, which results in a mental illness. Yeah, because when our neurochemistry is interfered with or affected one way or the other, then we may end up having a mental illness like depression or anxiety, which is a risk factor. The other thing we do that affects our neurochemistry is substance use. You know, so anytime people expose themselves to or indulge in excessive substance use, they're altering their neurochemistry one way or another. But then beyond that, then we have social stressors. We experience so many things. We have financial issues we are going through. We have marital issues and family issues that people are facing. We have sometimes even the fact that other people use it for coping. You know, those who, when we look at people, there are people that we look up to. So when we notice that someone we looked up to might have committed suicide at some point, there are times when that can model to everyone else under them that this is an option. This is something you can do. So I wouldn't really say one specific cause, but I'd attribute it to biological factors. But then beyond that, we have environmental factors, the spaces we live in, the kind of messages we listen to, the kind of people we interact with, social factors, the kind of experiences we go through, trauma, adverse childhood experiences, pain, you know, and things like that, the kind of mental health illnesses we may experience, including substance use, including depression. People who experience psychotic disorders as well may also be at risk, among other things. So it's a whole load of factors that would possibly be risk factors to suicide.
Right.
Yeah.
Do we have numbers in terms of those who have attempted suicide and versus those who have been successful, and which numbers outweigh the other?
Oh, that's a very, very good question. So allow me to start with thinking. Those who have thought about suicide, by the way, are very many people who think about suicide at any given time. Sometimes I say even the Kiswahili saying, I wish the ground could open, it's a Kiswahili saying, but allow me to say it in English. I wish the ground would open up and swallow me. It's a suicidal thought. If you think about it, it can be perceived as a suicidal thought. There are times when you can't feel very overwhelmed and you're driving, you're passing by a road, you're in a situation, and for a moment there, the fleeting thought passes by. It's just that you never do anything about it. So the truth is we have very many people. In fact, when we think about suicidality, think like a triangle, you know, at the very base is everyone who thinks about it.
Okay.
So many people will think about it at one point or the other. However, not everybody who thinks about it proceeds to plan for it. Remember, triangle, so we are moving up. So you realize the base has a larger number, but then there's a lesser number moving up for those who actually plan.
Right.
Now, not everybody who plans will attempt. Yeah. So, and not everybody who attempts succeeds. However, the fact that somebody has planned or somebody has attempted is a risk factor.
Okay.
Those are risk factors we have to pay attention to. Because if they attempt again, they might just succeed this time. Yeah. So if I was to look at the numbers, that's how I would think of it. The people who think about it are many. The people who plan are less than those who think about it. And those who attempt are less than those who plan. And those who succeed are also less than those who attempt. Okay. Yes.
I'm curious.
Yeah.
It's always puzzled me. What is it that happens to someone? It can't be one thing. It may be a combination of things. To get to a point where you actually feel that staying alive is a waste of your time. What gets one to that particular place?
Okay. I think one emotion that is, maybe not even one emotion, there are a few emotions that are linked to that particular state. But maybe even before I talk about the emotion, let me tell you, emotions are the center of our lives. Emotions drive our behaviors. That's what, yes.
Really?
Emotions drive our behaviors. And in most cases, emotions result from what is in our mind. So if I think I'm not good enough, I will feel worthless or inadequate. And if I feel worthless or inadequate, then I want to hide away from everybody. That's what I mean.
So the thinking, the mind influences our emotion.
Yes. Yeah.
And our emotions also influence our thinking.
They do have an inverse relation, two-sided, bi-directional relationship, yes. But in most cases, the emotion is as a result of the thought. So if you wanted to trace, if you're struggling to figure out the thought, you can start with the emotion. Then you'll get the thought that is linked to that emotion.
Give us an example of that, could you? Okay. For example, if I'm feeling overwhelmed, the likelihood is that I'm going to think to do something about that. Is that what you're saying?
No.
Okay.
If I'm feeling overwhelmed, there's a reason I'm feeling overwhelmed.
There's so much work, there's pressure in the family, there's something. So that's the feeling of this overwhelming feeling that comes as a result.
So there's so much work is the situation. There's so much going on in the family. Those are situations. And situations we can never control, isn't it? So there's so much work. Everyone is against me. Everyone is coming for me. Those are the situations you're going through. Because there's so much work, I am thinking, oh my God, I can't cope. This is going to kill me. Everyone in my family don't love me. That thought will make me feel overwhelmed as a result. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So what you can quickly identify is the emotion. I'm feeling overwhelmed. And you'll even say, I don't know why. So as a therapist, it was to help you, I'd start by tracking, okay, what triggered this feeling of being overwhelmed? Because the thought does not automatically come to us. And yet we have automatic thoughts all the time. You walk into a room, there's a thought that will cross your mind. And you don't even have control over that thought. There's the first thought that crosses your mind when you walk into a room. Who are these people? Why are they looking at me? It's an automatic thought. No matter how confident you are, no matter what there's an automatic thought that will precede and trigger an emotion. That emotion will trigger a behavior. Now, there's processed thought that follows the automatic thought, or that you can deliberately engage in to alter how you feel. Okay? So there's an example I love using. I walk into a room and find a panel of 5 big-bodied gentlemen seated ready to interview me. There are many thoughts that could cross my mind. So I can't determine who sits in the panel. But when I walk in, I might begin to feel sweaty, anxious, my heart is racing, and I can't figure out why. It goes back to when I walked in, how did I appraise that situation? I looked at this gentleman and said, oh my God, there's no way I'm getting this job. These people are too intimidating. I don't think they will like me. I'm not good enough for this position. That thought made me feel anxious. And that anxiety is the reason why I'm sweating, I'm fidgeting. You ask me my name, I've forgotten my name. I can't even. So what was my name again? and I can tell you, your mind can block to the point you actually can't remember. So with awareness, when I know, then I try to track back, and then I need to change the thought. Because my power lies in changing the thought. So instead of thinking, these guys will not like me, why not think, okay, Edna, they've never met you before. They have no reason not to like you. Give yourself a chance. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So that's how, the moment I think, Edna, they've never met you before, they have no reason not to like you. Right. Automatically, my feeling will change. Because now I'll feel calmer, maybe even more centered. And as a result, my behavior may also change.
Talking of anxiety, is it the same anxiety where I want to leave and I think I have misplaced my car keys, and I start looking, and I'm really looking, and I'm looking for it. And then my child tells me, but your keys are in your hands.
That's a good one. Although that is more linked to memory lapses.
Yes.
For a moment there's a reason why you have forgotten, or you cannot feel your key in your hand.
Is the lapse as a result of my anxiety, or is it that I'm getting old and my mind is beginning to fail?
Can actually be both. Can actually be both. There's an element of definitely as we grow older, we have diminishing capacities as we grow older, unfortunately, or it's just part of life, and we need to exercise our brains, by the way, to enhance performance for our brains as we grow older. But then beyond that, anxiety makes your functioning shut down. Your executive functioning is slowed down when you're anxious.
Okay.
Because everything is targeted towards one direction. This pain, this overwhelming feeling you're feeling, this worry you're feeling, whatever it is you're appraising in that situation, is making, so everything is channeled there. Meaning every other place in your brain that needs you to function well is sort of slowed down as a result.
Is this the point where we now bring in the ecosystem or the environment and how it influences our thinking and in turn influences our emotion? Okay, so
absolutely.
Okay.
And let me just ask you on the issue of thinking.
Yeah.
Because you're saying thinking influences the emotion. So when you are discussing self-awareness, are you also saying then we should control the thinking process as well?
Yeah.
Oh, I see.
Because we say, remember, the environment or the situation you can't control. You cannot stop what's coming at you. You cannot decide these are the experiences I'll have. You cannot decide whether it will rain or not, whether the sun will shine or not, whether the government will do what you want or not. And you can't. There are things outside of you really can't control. However, how you respond to the things that happen or the situations or the environment you are in are within your control. And that is why actually we have these conversations.
Okay.
Yeah.
So are we saying then that at the point that it gets to suicide, is there the decision, because now you think about it, you plan it, you attempt it, you succeed. That's a hierarchy that we're looking at, right? So are we saying that at the point where a suicide is attempted, that there's a kind of blocker to that change of thought process? So there's something that stops you from thinking in the opposite direction, and you continue with this mal-thinking that gets you to then attempt? So is that where we look at a mental blocker that's happening here, or what happens in there that thought cannot change?
Okay, I'll explain. Now, when somebody begins to think about suicide, they're feeling cornered. It's like being stuck in that corner, and no matter which direction you're looking, there's no solution that works. Isn't it? So you're feeling, I can't pull through this again. I don't think I have what it takes to get out of this situation. I'm done. So you're thinking of suicide as a solution in that moment. Is it a good solution? No, because it costs you your life. However, the person who's thinking about it is feeling so hopeless and so helpless. They have nothing else left. Why are they feeling hopeless and helpless? Because of how they have appraised the situation that they are in. From where they sit, there is no way out of this situation. When I feel there is no way out, I'm better off out. Does that make sense? Yes. So it's and I'm always careful to say there are two kinds of people who can commit suicide. One is the planner. There's someone who will actually plan systematically over time, and they'll actually achieve. But then there's someone who does not necessarily plan. They may have poor coping, but they don't necessarily plan. So you wake up one day and you're told, the wife you have been married to for 20 years, or 25 years, has been having another relationship, and all the 5 children you have are not your children.
That one is a tough one.
That's a very tough one.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
So in that moment, you get that message, you are just walking out of the building. You can walk into the road and just die. Because in that moment, everything has just been shut down. My past is a lie. I have nothing else left to live for. You may not even have fully thought about what are the consequences. actually don't think about the consequences. You're just thinking, I need to get out of this place I am in right now. I feel trapped. I need to get out. I feel I can't do it anymore. I need to get out. So you don't think beyond. You don't think beyond that thought. And that's why we look at, if we were to look at prevention, then we would have to come back to what are the coping strategies you have.
Okay.
If you are caught up in that situation, is there someone you can call? Is there someone you, I just need to take a walk. Is there a place you can sit? You know.
And I have to ask this question.
Yeah.
When we think of the structure of what we call a traditional society, were suicides common, or are they even evidenced?
I don't think they were evidenced. I don't think many of them may have been reported. Common, maybe not. But then it's also hard for us to tell because we have no data to back that entirely. Have we been told of instances where people committed suicide? Yes, they are there. Do they look like there were very few? Yes, they do. But then you realize, even we say we have many suicides because there's more reporting. So when there's no reporting or less reporting, then you cannot really justify if there are more or less. Yeah.
You know, it's an interesting discussion because, yes, almost everything we will say about it has a truism attached to it. Because one, it is argued that the support system that one has, and you've alluded to it, that if you feel you're alone, now why do you feel you're alone? Because there is no support system that you can attach yourself to. Now, the so-called traditional setup had that.
That's true.
It was there. Now, again, a support system could also be adverse.
Yeah, that's true.
It could be toxic, okay?
That's true.
But it exists. Now, this balance, and this is why I brought in the environment and its contribution, because we argue that human beings evolve, but our evolution seems to work towards our extinction, because the more we evolve, the more we hear of people killing themselves or taking their lives. So what is it about our evolutionary process that we seem to have missed? Or what is it about us as human beings and certain hard drive traits that we have we missed in our evolutions so that this killing of self has taken a very, 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 very prominent role in our lives? What is it?
I like your perspective, an interesting perspective there, because I'm just thinking, it's like the more we simplify life, the easier it is. If you look at back in the day, life was a lot harder. They had to be a lot more, they had to be very resilient. It wasn't very easy to think about suicide as an option, isn't it?
You're too busy to think of suicide.
You are too busy, exactly. You had too many things to do, so it's not the first thought. It looks like it was not necessarily the first thought that would cross people's minds back in the day. However, now we have time, honestly, and now we are aware because we are seeing it happening all around us, isn't it? Now we have sometimes even more resources, accessibility to the things we can use to commit the said suicide, among other things. We may not exactly have enough people telling us, don't lose hope, or enough activities or things that give us a reason not to lose that hope, isn't it?
Yeah.
So that's how I would perceive what you have just shared. It's like the simpler, if you ask the older people, this life would look really simple.
Yeah.
Because we don't have to work as hard to we have to work hard, but we don't have to go to the shamba to earn a living, do half the things they used to do. We are not doing the manual work and things like that. So not to mean we are working less, but life looks simpler. If you were to compare the two. And yet the simpler it is, the harder it is. Our children get to enjoy. Our children practically live.
Sylvia had a question.
Thank you, I was weighing in on what City you're saying, where human beings, where we are evolving to. And I think that's a very pertinent issue we must bring out to the fore, because we are sinking more into loneliness. The social order that we've known traditionally is breaking down. The family unit is breaking down. And human beings, we are not built to be alone. And if you see some of the, more forward countries, the countries, first world countries, there's a lot of loneliness that is reported. And actually the suicide rates are much, much higher because of this loneliness. And you find, in fact, the loneliness is not just even amongst the young people. The young people may have other social determinants maybe, but as they grow older, the older generation, you find very lonely older people. Korea, for instance, and Japan is having its own challenges when it comes to the social discourse where people are not meeting face to face. You know, there's less and less and less of that. Human beings were not meant to be, you know, living by yourself. And I think that is the one thing about our traditional African system that we should say we really miss. And if there was a way to incorporate that back into our current lifestyles and find a balance, it would be great. My book club reading a couple of months ago was on Ikigai, which talks about, you know, the secrets of long life. That a few areas in Japan have figured it out where people live to many years, over 100 plus. And one of the things that actually comes out is the social interactions, that they go into these groupings where they support each other. They have groupings where people support each other. So if you're financially down, you have a safe space, a safe group where you can pull each other up. When somebody's a bit down, you pull each other up. And these are important conversations we need to bring back to our young people as we speak. The creation of a safe space. A lot of women have sort of figured this thing out. Women are good at, having social groupings where they can support each other. Some of our churches...
Wait, are you saying men are not good at having social
I just
groupings?
gave an example.
Well, maybe she can tell us, are they?
Actually, I have seen a group of men who have formed, a bond which is a safe space for themselves. And it's beautiful because then they support each other. And when somebody is down, you pull each other, you pull each other up. I think these are very important conversations we must have today and push for such. Remember when we were growing up, and, for those of us who are older in the African system, you were always in a group of, what do you call them? In an age group. You grew up in an age group and you went through different stages of life together. You were mentored, and you had people looking out for you. And then, it was kind of defined then which way you're going. Now we're in a world that is super evolving fast. We are barely coping. And in Africa, like I always say, we are leapfrogging because we are sort of trying to catch up with the West. Because of all the social media connectivity, we are seeing what's happening in the West. We want to catch up with the West. But at the same time, tumeacha mila zetu. So what are we becoming? Mwacha mila, we are now beginning to float around without being rooted. And that is one of the reasons, I think, why our society is struggling so much with mental illness, because we are not rooted. We've forgotten the things that make us solid and grounded. And then we have lost this social connectivity, which is also affecting our family unit, the base at which, we draw strength from, and growth.
Do we see this? And I think this is one of we've seen that question also pop up this morning. And that, because if we do look at the statistics, whether it's worldwide or the few statistics that we have here in Kenya, that more men tend to commit and succeed at suicide than women. Why is that? And is that what you've seen as well?
Well, there's an element of truth there, or based on the statistics that have been out there, that there's a high number of men who may commit suicide in comparison to women. But I'd explain it this way. I think women, you're right in saying women have social support of sorts. Women easily destroy each other, but women don't hold back from sharing their most intimate struggles with each other. So they are very open and very vulnerable. The only problem is, on the flip side, they easily use that against each other. But you see, sometimes I say, when we hold back from sharing ourselves because of shame, because of fear of being judged, we are at a higher risk than someone who shares, are ashamed, but they get the help. You get? So sometimes I think women, yes, have an easier time handling shame. The place of a man in society is very prideful and he needs to look strong. There are all these narratives we've built around the men. You need to look strong. You need to look like you have it all together. You need to look like you're in control. You need to look like you're domineering. You need to give us a sense of direction, among other things. So what happens is, because of all those narratives that the men then have to live up to, and I don't even think I cover them in their entirety, then they're less likely to ask for help when they need it. They have less with the kind of successful relationships we have. There's more longevity
in it.
Exactly. Yeah.
The mental health conversation in this country is one that one would hope would have been gripped a little bit more seriously, even as we come to the end of this conversation. What are we hoping will be front and center when it comes to dealing with mental health? Suicide now being one of those factors under mental health generally. We're seeing some movement, some conversations, but should it be treated as a national disaster as was prescribed a couple of years ago?
Well, I think so. I think mental health issues should be given a lot of attention and be treated, especially because they're preventable. So when they keep impacting lives and affecting and taking away, affect quality of life, affect society, affect perception, encourage, when we talk about a happy society, I mean, mental health issues are the reasons why we don't experience happiness in our society, if you think about it, So yes, indeed, that is something that needs to be paid attention to. Yes, indeed. If it is possible to declare, to think of it as a real disaster or a national disaster that we need to put more focus and resources on, I think that's something that should be done so that everybody gets help. Because the flip side of it is, if we don't pay attention to it, only those who have resources
will get
to access the help.
How can people access you? I think it's a question that has also come today. If somebody needed to reach out and speak to you, Edna, how can they do that?
Okay. So I do consult for Minet. So one of the ways to reach me would be through Minet. I know that is possible. But then beyond that is through social media as well. Yeah, you look for Edna Chawiyah. You will find me. I'd like to believe I'm the only one out there.
And you will respond.
Yes, and I will respond.
Maybe I can just give a take home that I've taken from you today is the issue of self-awareness. And because, a lot of mental health issues they start at a young age. In fact, they say from the age of 13, 14 is when mental health issues begin. So my take home is that this conversation on self-awareness and emotional intelligence needs to happen to that demographic. I think our high schools and our campus needs to emphasize on self-awareness and emotional intelligence amongst our youth.
Very, very true, because it will help with self-regulation. If you can master the self, you can take charge of the world.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Edna Chawiyah, consultant, psychologist, thank you for being here this morning as we look at those important issues. Thanks for being our guest on the Situation Room this morning.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.